trees.
Hello, everyone. We are about to start our coffee with the counselors. Looks like it's only.
We already started.
I know, we heard. So how are you all today?
Good.
Beautiful day.
Not too bad, not too bad. So how do we want to get started today? Maybe we can talk to Rick.
Sure.
Yeah, Rick.
Sure.
Dr.
Good morning,
Fauci.
everybody. How are you? How's it going? Just to give you a quick update of what's happening around here. If you look at the coronavirus, we're doing really good when it comes down to new cases. We've had a decrease of cases throughout the state to our average case counts below right around 330 cases a day. Our hospitalizations are down to 100, which is very, very promising. And that is a huge amount of relief. And now we're focused so much more on vaccinations. In the state, the vaccination doses is right around 20% of the population has a single dose, and right a little over 10% is fully vaccinated. And that goes along with the county as well. When you look at our county numbers, we are 791 cumulative cases with 4 that happened last Friday. And the first doses for Clatsup County is right around 7,500, and about 3,700 are fully vaccinated. And so that gets us right into that percentage as the state average. So we're doing quite well. And in those averages, there is a very large percentage of elderly population, and those numbers are really high. They're above 60%, and they're climbing every day. The county has been receiving a lot of doses, and not only are those doses starting to get out in the thousands a week, but we also have added more pharmacies to the list. So not only has it been Safeway and Costco, but it's been added to Walmart. And then hopefully next week, they should be having other pharmacies that are Rite Aid and Fred Meyer that are starting to participate. So, and that's the way the vaccine program was actually designed to work. It was designed to go to the pharmacies, and public health has been shoring up that process of that plan. And now they're kind of up to speed. They're still having problems getting people signed up because the scheduler is a little bit complicated because we're still dealing with age groups. So the hope is that next 2 or 3 weeks that we're no longer dealing with age groups, middle of April at the latest, and that it's just anybody come and start signing up. And that's all about supply and demand. So we'll see how that goes. We'll be monitoring it every few days. And we've been fortunate enough to be invited as representatives to go visit the clinic sites. And so I'm up there kind of making sure I can help if any possible. So your guys' points of view are represented up there as much as possible. That's about all I have from what we did with that. Last week, we had a really good staff ride out in the forest. And that was something that I was really excited to be able to do with the staff and the members of the fire department and the Parks Committee. So that was a good time. Any questions for me?
I have a question.
Sure, Betsy.
Vaccine, I know that for my husband and I, we got ours at Safeway, but it was a process of doing it on the computer. And I was wondering, we are going to be fully vaccinated in a couple of weeks. I wondered if people like us who understand the computer could be hooked up with people that may need help after we're fully vaccinated, because it's not a slam dunk to go through the computer if you don't know what you're doing.
It's not a slam dunk. And we've been working with our local Red Cross and CERT leadership team to identify the vulnerable population who are disconnected. We call them people, those individuals just disconnected. And we're really rallying around them and trying to identify them. But we find new ones every day. So shoot me an email. Janae is a huge resource with the Red Cross, or Mary Beth Cottle is a resource with the CERT team. And if you give any of us the email, it'll come with the name and contact information. Then that information can get to me and I can start moving it forward.
Okay, well, my problem is I'm isolated and I don't know anybody, but if you have people that need help, we can help. That's all I'm saying. And if I'm sure that we can either do it by phone if they're, or Zoom. Anyway, they need help, we can help them. And once we get fully vaccinated, we can drive them places to get vaccinated. So I just thought.
Yeah, thank you for that. We have drivers set up already through the CERT team, and we've been given the opportunity to do that ourselves. So we do have some drivers right now. Also, Sunset Empire Transportation is doing free transportations to the vaccine clinics. And so that information I sent out over the weekend, and we're going to be putting it up on our website. So there's all kinds of options for transportation. We just got to make sure that the ones that are disconnected find us, and then we get them to the right direction. And you're right, it's not a slam dunk. Some of these things are hard to navigate on the website. So Mary Beth Cottle, myself, and Janae are the ones to contact to focus those efforts. Okay.
Okay.
Rick,
Sounds good.
Bob and I were 66, and we went on, and they said that they're doing 70-year-olds right now, so they haven't started the 65 yet.
That's correct. And it may actually start this week. Every week they go down 5 years in age, as in people they're letting through those portals. And then it's a supply and demand kind of thing. So that's the hard part to navigate. We may still have some 80-year-olds out there that are getting left behind. But in general, I think this week is 65. Does anybody know the numbers? Is that right? And then next Monday, it will be 60 and above. So you should be right there in that window to really be able to get scheduled this week.
Yeah, we went on Safeway and the others, and they just said there was nothing available.
And that could be the case. Now that runs into a supply and demand issue right there. So one thing to realize too is you do not need to do the county survey if you go to a pharmacy. If you go to a pharmacy, they're independent of the county. And so just realize that if you do the survey for the county, that's not going to help you get signed up for any of the pharmacies.
Hey, Deb.
Yeah.
You might consider joining Nextdoor, because there was a guy who was actually posting available times and locations of
Okay.
appointment
Oh,
vaccines that were
Thank you.
available.
Thank you.
Very much.
That's great. I had another question.
One thing
Go ahead.
One thing we found out when we went to get our vaccine is we needed our Medicaid card, and they don't have that anywhere on the information you get when you're signing up. Luckily, we had ours with us, but that should be added to the website just so people don't get there and then are turned away.
That's great input. Thank you for that. I know in the county that they are not charging, they're not taking any health insurance information, but I'm sure that's different at the pharmacy. So thank you. I'll try to add that to the tomorrow sit rep.
Okay, great.
I had a question, Rick. It's off the COVID subject, but when you're growing old in Cannon Beach, which we are too, getting older, but what happens when people are like 80 and 90 and can't take care of themselves anymore, and they're in the city and they don't? Some people are in denial about it. Do you know people like that in the city?
Yes, we've reached out to many of them. And when COVID first started, our CERT team did an amazing job by reaching out they got the actual voter registration, and they called every occupant or every person that was registered to vote in the city of Cannon Beach, and they contacted them personally. They identified a couple dozen people that were really on that borderline, and some of them wanted help and some of them did not want help. And then we were able to get them food stocks at that time, or get them hooked up with food delivery systems. And so we still have that list, and we've been contacting those lists and those people with the vaccine process. Does that mean that we're not able to miss people? That does not mean that. We still can miss people, but we have really narrowed the ability to completely overlook these individuals, because we already identified them almost a year ago when everything got shut down.
Yeah, I was on that list. I called a lot of that list, but they all seemed in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
What kind of facilities are down here for people if like somebody had to go to assisted living or that kind of thing? Are there facilities down here at the beach besides like Avamere? I saw that in Seaside. And
I'm not sure. I'm not sure of all the elderly care facilities here in Cannon Beach.
yeah, I don't think there's any in Cannon Beach.
There are,
There's none in Cannon Beach.
Neowana by the Sea is one.
Neowana by the Sea, the Avamere, I think there's one or two up in Astoria area.
Susanna Lee's.
Oh, Suzanne Elise, yeah. Mhm.
Susanna, what?
Suzanne Elise. It's a care home.
That's owned by Avamere.
Just
That owned
Google
by
it.
Avamere too.
Getting a lot of information, Google will tell you. And also there's a, area agency on aging and senior services usually have that. The health department has that information.
Huh.
And that list that you have, Rick, are you going to be using that, keeping that for any natural disasters that we have? Like
Yeah, we have it on an Excel spreadsheet, and our goal is to adapt it to any situation, to whether we have an extended weather event, whether it's hot or cold, or we have an extended power outages. Our goal is to identify those people and go out and find them. Unfortunately, we have not mapped our neighborhood yet with the CERT team, and that's something that we're in progress right now of developing a Map Your Neighborhood program, and then put those two lists together to know where not only where everybody is and the map of the city's detailed, but also where the vulnerable individuals are. So it's been kind of a labor, but it's something that we're going to use as often as we need to.
Yeah, because as a fireman, my husband was a fireman. I mean, they sometimes found people who'd been in their houses passed away for a few weeks, things like that. I don't know if
was
there's
on
anything
the
that isolated
tour
there.
of the rainforest yesterday, well, a few days ago with you, and that was so wonderful that you invited us all there and let us see what's happening up in and what the roads.
Sound is not very good, Betty.
Yeah, I can't hear.
Yeah, I can't, Betsy, I'm having problems with your speaker too.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, sorry. So
I
you
can't
can't hear
tell
me?
who's speaking.
I can hear you, yeah,
Yes,
I can hear you.
Betsy's on the lower right. Betty's on the left.
I think we're freezing up here a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, I appreciated the tour. Thank you, Rick and Bruce and everybody that put that together. That was very enlightening.
Absolutely. And we can go out there again. If you guys want to see more stuff, we can schedule another tour out there, just so you guys feel like you have all the information you need to see all those points of interest.
I would love to, because I know we saw the upper north area, but I wondered if there's other areas you're thinking of. I just don't know the full scope of what you're planning.
Let's plan another trip to the other side of the ECFR and that access point, and we'll figure that out when the weather gets a little bit more kind, to where more dependable, and we'll put something together.
Okay. Thank you. That'd be great.
describe what that tour was about?
Yeah. That tour that we did was an informational tour, and it was a first chance that I've had personally to get the fire department representatives, Greenwood properties, the parks, and the staff all together in the same place up into the forestry. And what we did was we basically, we're all pretty familiar with the actual ECFR and in the insides of that, but I wanted to get people to the outside and show some of the hazards and the road construction, and mostly show what Greenwood does. So we drove everybody out to the outside, called the Volmer Track, which is access points off of Highway 101. And it's really kind of difficult to get into the ECFR from the Greenwood properties. It's much easier to get into the ECFR through our properties. But when you get into the ECFR through Greenwood properties, we were able to take a driving tour, and they were able to see that path. And then you have to go several miles in to get to where you are. And you can see the quality of the roads, the different tree stands. You can even delineate the structure and the mapping of where the ECFR starts and Greenwood's property is. And you can get a good vantage point from up there. And we had a chance to get up there and have a conversation and have just an open dialogue of what we were looking at. What does it mean to us? What are we trying to protect? And also who our partners are. When we talked to Greenwood and the fire department out there and realized that they're on the perimeter constantly protecting us, and what is their perspectives? And so it was a very good time to go out there and talk to everybody. And what a beautiful day, right? It was not much better of an opportunity to see Cannon Beach and the ocean from that high point venue. And we also got to meet Chad Washington, which is Greenwood's new representative in the area. And it was great to get him out there with us. So that partnership growing is really, really important. And so that's what we were able to accomplish that day. And then gives the Parks Committee a chance to have a better perspective when they make some of their decisions.
Who is Greenwood?
Greenwood is the company that owns all the Greenwood properties that surround Cannon Beach. And they're also called, the parent company is Lewis and Clark. And so when you look at Greenwood Properties and Lewis and Clark, they're a huge forestry agency that are in predominantly in Clatsup County, and they're massive. They're a gigantic company, and they have a huge vested interest in protecting their forest. And how they do it is a pretty amazing machine. So that's Greenwood. And the more you kind of learn about them, you realize that they are a really good neighbor to have on our borders. Very good company to be around us.
Yeah, and the individual that is their manager of North American operations is Mark Morgan's, and he's a resident in Cannon Beach.
Essentially, they're a timber company is what they are. But they have been great neighbors. They've been very helpful with us.
Something I found interesting is that they are a representative, and the land is what Mark explained to me. The land is actually owned by a pension fund for teachers. So they're the ones that actually own the property, and it's managed by a company like Greenwood.
Does the pension company own all of Greenwood's resources in Clatsup County?
I believe that in Clatsup County, that's the case, but we didn't get into that detail, Betsy.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And they've got it laid out that they know when they're going to need money, and that's based on when certain sections will be harvested, and then they're replanted within a year or two. And they've got a whole process on how they do things, and they're very environmentally friendly.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but
Well, as far as someone that is in that business,
well,
they're
right.
very careful.
Relatively speaking, yes.
Yeah, well, they're very careful what they do, and they also showed us, slash burns and slash piles. The process that they have while they wait for something to, well, actually, they'll chop it up and then take it away. But prior to going to that step, they actually set up piles that are become habitat.
That's not like the one down by Arch Cape where they have pollution going into the water. Where's that? Or maybe that's Nehalem. That's not the same company, right?
I don't know who manages
They're
down that way.
contaminating the water supply.
It's a different company.
Warehouser?
It's
Yeah.
I
Okay.
forget the Stemson that owns the Arch Cape track over there.
There's several different.
Who is it, Trevor?
Stemson.
Stimson?
And when we were talking about the roads, I think it was this past Thursday, one of the things that, is it Chad? Chad was talking about is the way they grade the roads. It's not just, random. They grade the roads so that it goes away from the edge. And so the water will collect someplace else so it doesn't go down to the creek. So that's the kind of thing I'm saying. They go into those details to try to do the best job they can.
That's good to know.
Well, hello, Diane. I noticed you had been in and out. A lot. You got to unmute yourself.
You have to unmute.
You're on mute. We can't hear you. I see your mouth moving. There you go.
Now can you hear me?
I can
Yes.
hear you. How are you today?
Well, I'm fine, thanks. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Good to see you.
I was curious to know if anyone wants to talk about the lighting ordinance. I know we have a dark sky policy, but there are sure a lot of really bright lights in this city. And I know it disturbs the birds, and I know it disturbs us when we're walking in the dark.
Are you still having problems with the Breakers Point light?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. They're very bright.
Even some of the amber ones are.
Even some of the amber ones are rather bright.
Anybody lend any light to that subject?
Where specifically is she talking about?
Where specifically, any specific locations?
Yes, go to the post office after dark and go up the steps and you'll be, it's like the third degree. There's a bright white motion light. In fact, there's another one on the side of the building, but I think it must have been recently installed. I don't remember having it that way
And we have a neighbor.
before. And we have a neighbor who has three bright green lights on all the time.
24 hours.
Right,
And
green
they're
light?
hardly ever there. Yeah, those bright green LEDs, I think they are.
They should be downlit.
And I thought that the lighting in the city was supposed to be downlit and shielded.
So I don't know.
I'll check into the ones at the post office. I wasn't aware that there had been new lights installed on the outside of the building, but I'll look at that. Pacific Power did go through town and out on the highway, and they changed all of their bulbs to LED bulbs. But within the city limits, they're supposed to be the dark sky lumen levels. Out on the highway, it's a different thing. It's lit up like a football field, but that doesn't have anything to do with our city limits. But some people have commented on the difference between the LED lighting and the old incandescent bulbs. And but the bulbs within the city limits of Cannon Beach meet the dark sky requirement of our ordinance.
We did notice the lights on the highway being changed and didn't expect those to change, but within the city, there should be some way to educate people about lighting. I know enforcement is difficult, but I'm not sure people even realize how distressing it is to have those bright white ones. I understand that you can get amber color LEDs.
We will put a reminder in our city bulletin about the requirement of the low-level lumens on people's residences. I know some of the businesses have added lighting because of the flurry of graffiti that has been hit all around town. And so businesses have had cameras installed, and in order for the cameras to work, you have to have the proper lighting for them to pick up an image. And so some of our businesses have added lighting to be able to discourage the vandalism and the graffiti that we're seeing around town.
White lights cause black shadows.
Rex has made some study and realized that the white lights make
Black shadows.
Don't make black shadows, right?
They do. And the amber lights.
But the amber lights show more than the white lights do, because the white lights make the black shadows.
Hey, Diane, this is Trevor. If you give me a call after this meeting, I can get some addresses from you and I can submit a complaint to the code enforcer and he can check into your neighboring light issues, okay?
Oh, great. Thank you, Trevor.
Yep.
And if anybody, we have a code enforcement complaint form online.
Mm-hmm.
And
I used that the other day for some lights that are amber, but they're directed to the passersby as opposed to being down lit. And there's one aimed toward the tree above it, which would include the sky. And so I reported that, but nothing's been done about it.
Okay, and I don't know how long it'll take for code enforcement to get out there or if they've been out there. But just saying that if you have or you see any issues, if you use that form, because when it gets on that form, it starts going through, through staff. But just calling or, telling us now, it may or may not get on, like Trevor said, he'll put it in the system. But that's what needs to happen.
Thank you. We'll work on it from that direction then.
And you have to approach it from the Oak Street side.
Tell Rex to get on that camera. He's dictating to you.
Don't hear him.
And pictures at one point.
Yeah, we hear what Rex is saying, so you don't have to repeat it.
Rex is like the Wizard of Oz.
That's right.
Rex is camera shy.
Yeah.
I don't believe that for a minute, Nancy.
All right.
And you could go to Port Orford to see how they deal with it.
Incidentally, Port Orford has a really good dark sky ordinance. Cameron LaFollette pointed that out to me, and she said she would be willing to work with us too on the dark sky.
I think we have a strong ordinance. I think the problem is enforcing it.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, Diane, when you say educating people about the fact that we have them. I know I have some neighbors that have some pretty bright lights, and I think other people probably do too. I've heard other people talk about it. So I'm not sure a lot of people know about the dark sky ordinance.
Okay.
I think that's part of it.
So
Tell
I
them that. A note in the
mean, I
water
guess
bill.
I should read the ordinance for myself, but is there an ordinance that says in residential neighborhoods that people shouldn't be having these really bright LED lights, especially leaving them on all night long?
I don't know that we have hours listed in the ordinance, but it does talk about residential areas as well, so.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Rex, get on that camera. All right. Anything going on in the city, Bruce, that you want to talk about?
No, there's nothing going on in the city.
It's done here, man.
Yeah, no, I think everybody saw what,
I got some.
Rex,
Somebody
you
on
need to listen. Oh dear. I think Bruce was trying to say something, but Rex was also trying to say something at the same
Wait for
time.
Rex.
He's asking if the city bulletin goes out to everyone. He was also asking about the possibility of putting something in the water bills about lighting.
Yeah, we can look at that in,
Rex, do you guys receive the bulletin? Have you guys asked us to send it to you?
Actually, I'm not sure what you mean by the city
No, I don't either.
bulletin.
What are you talking about?
Please send me an email if you want to be attached to the bulletin every month. We don't have everybody's email address in the city of Cannon Beach, so we can't just randomly send out an email to everyone, but we would like to if you want it.
I don't
Okay,
know
so
who's talking right now.
to whom should I direct that email?
Myself or Rusty Barrett.
Who's myself? We
Or
can't-
wait, Rick Hudson. What's the email we sent it to? It's the
City Hall.
City Hall at ci.cannon-beach.or.us.
.or.us. And I
I'll
think
just
we
send it
put
to
some on
City Hall.
Facebook.
City Hall.
Okay.
There should be a
World's
physical
best kept
thing.
secret. Okay.
And Rex, I'm gonna come over and sit in your family room so I can see you talking. I'll come hang out with you.
Rick,
There should be something.
bulletin is new, right?
Yes.
It is.
bulletin is something that we're trying to do to get the word out. We don't have a newspaper or at least regular coverage from a newspaper. And so when there's something going on in the city, like even it can be something like the lighting, it can be something like discussion about the utility projects and rates. But it's just a way for us to try to get the word out so that people are aware. And even if we have your email somehow, and I don't know how we would have most of them, but we will only send something out if somebody requests it. Some people get very nervous if the city has your email. So if you volunteer, you can, we'll go ahead and do that. I think, Rusty, what are we now, about 270?
250, I think.
I think we're at 250 now, so we got a ways to go to get to everybody. But I think we've sent out 1 or 2 editions is all. Yeah, 1. And we're trying to do it monthly to try to let folks know what's going on.
I think the idea of the water bill is good because everybody gets the water bill.
Mm-hmm.
as far as the light situation?
That costs the city money when we put inserts in the water bill, and the bulletin is a free publication. So I'd encourage you to steer it more towards the bulletin so it doesn't become a budget impact to the city to put it in the bill.
It's also on our website.
Yeah.
Same information is on the website.
People look at a physical piece of paper.
Okay.
People are more prone to look at the paper than the website. The piece of paper that comes in the water bill.
That is true. And I think the word has to get out that you need to send your email addresses to the city. So, you know, whoever you talk to, tell them that if they want to know more about what's going on in the city on a regular basis, that they should send email addresses to the city hall.
I wonder if the Gazette would put a little notice in the free paper if it was, you know, not.
Is that, Betsy, what did you say?
Maybe the Cannon Beach Gazette could put a little notice in there for people that pick up and like to read a newspaper or look at hard copy, that information is available online, but you need to sign up at the city and then.
Good idea.
The only problem with that is it's the Gazette and
A lot of people read it.
and also it's competition for them.
Well, I got that part, but you know,
Yeah.
it's
We
not,
also put it on Facebook.
there you go.
I'll put something on my Facebook page. Yeah.
It's like when they say, don't feed the animals, it's a piece of paper feed.
Yeah, I'll try again. We had a preliminary budget meeting, and we're calling it preliminary budget meeting because there's a budget committee, which is the council plus 5 other appointees. And they're not supposed to talk about the budget until we actually hand them a budget. Some of us are uncomfortable with that because if they want to change anything, it's very late in the process. And so what we try to do is talk about what might be coming up in the budget and to try to get some guidance early. So we've had that discussion. Ironically, the city benefited from the COVID-19 situation in terms of revenues, because a lot of people decided if they were going to sequester, they were going to sequester on the coast. And so we had a lot of hotel sales, and we've actually had 2 record quarters. That is not necessarily translated over to the restaurants and to their employees. But so the financial situation that we thought would be dire actually was helped somewhat by people wanting to come to the beach to spend some time. So that's some good news from a budget standpoint. We're also looking, we've had 5 sessions for Cannon Beach Elementary, got a lot of really good information. There's some information we've sent to an architect/engineer to look at some code issues on some of the things that we were talking about, and we'll be bringing things back to council pretty soon. We had a meeting to talk about rates. There's projects that we think are really important, and the system is, I think, 50 to 70 years old. And from a staff standpoint, the most important segment is from the springs down to a connection point around the bottom of Sunset Point or Sunset Boulevard. And because if water doesn't get from the springs down to that point, it doesn't get to the city. And so we have some asbestos concrete pipes up there. There's some other type of pipe. It's been there for a long time. And so now that we are starting to do renovations within the system, we think that that's the most important place to start. And it's unfortunately, it's not free, although Public Works staff has done an amazing job getting loans, some of which are 50%. I'm going to take this off because I know I'm sounding muffled. 50% principal forgiveness. So if we borrow $500,000, we have to pay back $250,000 at 1% over 30 years. So that's some, that was some really good work to pull that off. But we are also looking at, right now, the borrowing environment is about as good as it's ever going to get. The loans that we're looking at are 1% for 30 to 40 years. And in addition, you can see that there's a infrastructure project that's coming out of Washington. And the last time we had this kind of an environment was in the Great Recession. And they were doing anything they could to give money to somebody that had a project that was ready to go. Because the whole point about the infrastructure bill is to get people working. And there's a whole trickle down effect that, if you're doing a pipe project, there's all kinds of companies, supply companies, all become involved. So we are trying to position ourselves as best we can to have shovel-ready projects to be able to move forward on that. I'm sorry.
Making music now.
How festive.
I love it when I go through that whole thing and then it says possible spam. So anyway, so that's coming up. That'll be discussed during the it's more part of the budget process. So those are things that are potentially impacting. There's two sides to the impact. One is we're making the system more resilient, so it's more likely to be able to provide water. On the other side, it's going to cost money. And we've really not spent a lot of money on the utility system up until this point. It's been running okay, but like I say, when it hit about 60 years old, it started to have problems, as did I. So anyway, that's what's going on, and we have to do it in, again, the loan environment is very favorable right now, as is potentially grants. And I think that's it for the big stuff.
We have a work session. Tonight, we're talking to the district fire board to talk about a potential food and beverage tax that they would like to have a portion of to fund some services that they are really needing there in the fire district. I think they say that at least 77 to 80% of the calls they get are from people who don't live in this area and who don't pay taxes in this area. And so they're having a problem getting all of the services together to be able to serve those calls. So we're having a meeting at 6 o'clock tonight to talk to them. That's on Zoom too, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
yeah, so it is available to listen to that meeting. It's available on the website, Zoom link on this website.
And all the Zoom meetings that we've had are available still on the website. And I know that the discussion that we had about rates and projects was February 4th, if anybody wants to follow up on that.
Lady.
Somebody, is that Jan? Yeah. All right, anybody have any other questions about anything going on?
I wanted to bring up the fireworks. I looked at the YouTube on what Jason said last week. My mother-in-law's been in the hospital, so I have been gone to Portland. But I was wondering about the judge and his ruling on that, and if the city council is going to look at the fine thing again to see if it's more compatible with his feeling about the consequences of the fireworks thing and what everybody thought about that.
Bruce, would you like to talk about?
Yeah, I can address part of that. The fine when the officer shows up is up to $5,000. And the judge does have the ability to mitigate that depending on the conditions. And what we didn't have before was that the information, the only information the judge had was what was on the ticket. And so what the police officers are going to do when the case goes to the judge is to provide additional information, including the weather, the demeanor of the people, whether or not there were other people around that could potentially have been hurt, whether it was during the dry season. Anyway, any of those, and also if alcohol was involved. So the judge will have more information on which to base his decision. But the fine still stays up to $5,000. I believe that what will happen is that in a lot of cases, the officers will issue a $5,000 citation, and then potentially it can be mitigated in court.
Okay, so we want to keep it at the 5,000 then, because it sounded like he was against it being so high. The 5,000 was because of COVID and so forth, that was a really unreasonable fine.
I think he thinks that there are certain situations that might be warranted, but not every case.
Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure we're all living together on this, because to enforce it properly, we all have to be on the same page. So,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so as I understand it, Jason will submit that checklist to the judge, and the officers will have the checklist with them and fill it out after they make the citation, and then submit that along with the citation to the judge, so that the judge has some idea of what the conditions were at the time that the citation was issued.
Yeah, because I think the one that happened at December 31st got kind of communicated wrong or something, because I was there and saw it, so it was pretty bad. It was probably at least at $3,000 if you wanted to reduce it, but we can't go backwards, we got to go forward. So I just want to make sure the judge is aware of your wishes as a city council, and that he'll honor your wishes and our wishes and the people of Cannon Beach's wishes. So I don't know how you communicate that to him.
All right, anything else that anybody wants to talk about?
Well, Rex wants to know if you have considered joining Ashland and San Francisco in acknowledging our debt to the native population since we took their lands, and since Cannon Beach has such a close relationship with the tribes, that it might be appropriate to thank them for the land rather than they're apologizing to us and thanking us.
I wondered if that was going to come up. I heard about that on Oregon Public Broadcasting this morning. But I didn't catch all of it. It sounds like are they doing a thank you every meeting? Is that what they're doing?
That's my understanding.
That's what I thought I heard. We haven't, that was the first I'd heard of it. So this council hasn't discussed it at all.
A lot of meetings that I go to that are not for profit meetings, people introduce the meetings at the beginning by saying who the indigenous people are, whose lands we are now on. It's an acknowledgement of the people that came here and were here for thousands of years before most of us were here. I just assume most of us can't see everybody, but
Betsy, I can't hear you. It's hard to hear you.
I don't get what goes on with my computer. It just stops. I don't
Well,
even.
move closer to the microphone.
Closer.
Where is the microphone?
Top of is it a laptop?
Yeah.
Okay, it's probably on the top, at the top of the screen.
Probably by the camera.
Up by the camera. There you go.
This?
You can see your nose.
Anyway, did you guys hear me? It's just an acknowledgement at the beginning of every meeting, the city of Cannon Beach could do it, that, you know, that we are on indigenous lands. And because there were so many tribes that not only Clatsup and Nehalem, but this was, as Doug Doer pointed out to all of us, you know, a place that's always been a greeting and meeting place for people from lots of different areas, including lots of different tribes. So I don't know that we'd necessarily want to just identify one tribe, but just maybe an acknowledgement of,
Generically.
you know, just a generic,
Generic,
yeah,
thank
generic
you.
sort of, we're on indigenous lands that, well, I don't know if we want to go so far as to say we stole them, but that's kind of what happened. And then, well, speaking of underserved groups, I'm wondering if this is the place to bring up, I know we've talked about this quite a while ago, about having people in the city who, and on the police force, who are Spanish speaking. How are we doing with that these days?
And when we're doing the recruiting, Jason actually takes advantage. He's a teacher at the college, and he tries to recruit people through that. We have, or the officers, what their comment was, we have more cases dealing with Russians than we do Hispanics. And but they have a phone line that in a very short time they can, you know, call up and then have the person speak to the person on the line, and they can find an interpreter very quickly. And so that's how we've been working. We have not had applications from Spanish-speaking people recently. And so that's, and there's another thing happens too, is that, you know, we'll get, you know, potentially minorities and you know, and others, but they have to go through a very strong vetting process. And there's a lot of criteria to be met to be able to go to the academy, to be taught how to be a police officer. And sometimes people just don't make that cut. So we would like it to be otherwise, but we want to make sure that we're getting the right, you know, people with the right mentality, things like that, to be able to go into police work.
Okay, thank you.
I was on an interview committee for police officers recently, and there was an officer, or there was an applicant that was Hispanic, but as Bruce mentioned, he got all the way up to the point where he was about to be interviewed, but the background check proved, in fact, he called the chief and said, I don't think I'll pass the background check. So it's not like there aren't some applications, and they are being considered, but sometimes, as Bruce said, they just don't pass the background check. I know I've talked to Jason about this, and he said that he goes to the Hispanic Council, and he has made as many contacts as he thinks he can make in Clatsup County and elsewhere to bring in applicants, but there aren't that many, apparently, from what I understand, that actually do apply.
Also, there's a psych eval that is part of the process to try to make sure that people with the right mindset can become police officers, but people that might not be good officers in the long term don't generally pass that step.
Okay, thank you.
That can be said for a lot of applicants, though, whether they're Hispanic or Russian or whatever. That's a tough. So
I applied for a job, and they made me take a test for it was emotional, not stability, but it was emotional intelligence or something. And my wife said, well, don't even, you know, you're done for that one. But it was interesting. They would not let me have the results, but I didn't know what they were measuring. So anyway, that's, even city managers go through that to a degree.
Go ahead.
How are they coming on getting a new police station that doesn't have a lot of mold inside of it?
Well, the situation, as part of the discussion we had for the preliminary budget, the conditions, you see, the project is stalled and the conditions are getting worse. And I know that you and Rex did the walkthrough and can see many of the conditions. Some things are getting worse. And so what we're putting in the budget is a project where we're going to build a garage or storage area outside, move some materials from the storage area that's inside City Hall and allow the police station to move into it. So we have an architect looking at that right now. The better solution is if we were to do a City Hall, because any money we spend on this, none of it can be recaptured. And I don't know if there will be a restart of the City Hall / police station project, but in the year that we haven't done anything, the project cost has gone up $480,000.
Wow.
So that's the cost of waiting.
What, did the city council ever settle on an acceptable site for a new location for a city hall and police station?
There was not a unanimous decision on where the City Hall site would end up.
Just quote me. Well, go ahead, Diane.
Huh.
Yeah, so we still have to come down to a location. We haven't decided that yet.
Yeah,
And anybody that wants to come down and do a tour, we can do a tour of the current City Hall. There are places, I saw there was a brace in the next bay over. And I thought that the wall was holding up the roof. And somebody said, no, the roof is holding up the wall.
Wow.
Well, they do so much for us as the station. It's the least we could do for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're working under some really bad conditions. They have a desk that's about, I think it was 30 by 40 inches and has their monitor and their keyboard and everything else. And in the past, they actually had to process biological and drug evidence on that desk. And then when they were done, they would eat their lunch. And they're right next to the person that's got the same situation.
well,
And
as a taxpayer, I have to say that it would be easier to get behind the idea of supporting a new facility if it were clear where it was going to be.
Mhm.
yeah, it is. And it's, I think there's 4 viable sites. And, but there's not an agreement on where they should be, on where the location, but my thought is that the cost is going to be the more difficult point to get over.
And that
So-
doesn't go at any infrastructure grants.
Well, we could probably get a loan. I mean, obviously, I'm sorry, we would be able to get a bond. I don't believe the bond would be as low as 1%. It's probably more likely to be 2 or 2.5%. But still, that's it's better than what it's going to be, if we wait, too much longer. So, and it's a difficult thing. I mean, we've been talking about this project for 15 years. How long, Nancy?
Hello?
We've been talking about it.
Was one of the first stories I ever wrote when I first got here. That was 2007. So,
It was about the City Hall.
yeah.
And there was I guess called a Blue Ribbon Committee. They evaluated the situation and they voted 11-0 that we need a new City Hall. So anyway, but it's hard to pay for. I understand that. And it's not an easy time to, be asking people for more money.
Bruce, I wanted to tell you that in Beaverton, they built a new performing arts center that was a $48 million project, and the Reeser woman donated a lot of money. Can the elementary school be donations come in to make it a nonprofit type of situation, or any way to fund it by people who might donate to it?
Yeah, once we get going, we would definitely accept donations. And there's discussions about, nonprofit, managing it and other things, but that's something we have to look at on a case-by-case basis because it is city property. And we can't back away from any of our responsibilities by putting a nonprofit in front of us. So I know there'll be a lot of discussion about that when it comes up. There's already been some thoughts about parts that we can segment out if people want to make donations, say for the sound system or for, the catering kitchen or whatever it's going to be. But we're not there yet. But hopefully people will come through, recognize the importance of the project and provide some funding.
Yeah, I was wondering how they did it. So maybe that's something to look into. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And how 4 million versus 48 million was kind of like, what? That was a lot of money to spend, but it's state of the art,
Yeah, and also there's, I'm sorry, there's a lot more people to pay for it there too.
Yeah.
All right, we have about 2 minutes left. Anybody want to broach any comment, ask any questions?
It was really crowded this weekend downtown and I'm finding that people crossing the street, you can barely move through the main street anymore. Just a lot of people
spring break
crossing
yet.
everywhere.
It's not even spring break yet. Betsy?
Well, I was just wondering, we kind of segued right over the indigenous peoples conversation into Spanish-speaking police officers and city staff. So would that be something that the council could consider taking up as an introduction to their meetings, if that seems appropriate?
The indigenous people comments?
Some statement. I don't know what the appropriate statement would be, but just to talk about it as a possibility.
We could probably put it on the agenda for discussion, maybe a work session agenda item.
Sure, if you are requesting, I'll make sure that happens.
Okay.
Thank you.
Somebody's phone is. All right, anything else?
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming by and having coffee with us. I think I'm the only one that had coffee though today.
Happy birthday, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you for the card, by the way.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.